Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. My good friend, Mr. Jack Hatcher, is back
Hello.
for, well, yeah, welcome, buddy. But hang on, I've counted this. One, two, three, four, five, six. This is your seventh appearance.
Seven Chaos Emeralds, seven appearances. I love it.
So there's a couple of things. Okay, so this will be episode 228 or maybe to that,
Damn.
I think. Yeah, maybe. And you were on. And I count episode 4, episode 18, episode 19, episode 74, episode 123, episode 166.
I like
And
that. There's an even spread.
something even more interesting. I think you're my only guest that I've had on the show every single year of the podcast. So I had you in
Oh,
2020, 2021, 2022, and now, of course, 2023.
I love that. I was literally saying to my partner before we started recording, like, something I love about my appearances on this show is it's documented so much from like my channel growing during the COVID times
Oh, yeah.
to, starting my job at Sega to like a year into that and launching Frontiers and stuff like that. So it's captured some of the finer points of my life, really, which is
A good friend of
great.
mine, I've said this on the show before. Shout out to Childish Jacko. He said when I began this that like it's a time capsule, you know. And I
100%.
never thought about that because I like sometimes I'll obviously look back and look at old episodes, and to be honest, I just cringe at my old stuff. I'm like, oh,
Same.
but it's cool like checking in with people and seeing how people are progressing and stuff. And obviously, I keep tabs on you anyway, just like as friends.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, you've been doing a lot with Sega, some pretty big stuff.
Yeah.
Walk us through some of the sort of biggest developments since the last time we spoke.
I mean, as with all of these things, I am under NDA,
Fucking NDAs, man. I know all about
NDAs all
that from
over the
acting
place.
as well. Like, I just signed a contract for something the other day, and I was looking at it, and I was like, "Wow, I just can't talk about this at all." Great.
Yeah, pretty much. So obviously, I have to keep specifics
Mhm.
under wraps. But we launched Sonic Frontiers last year, and I played a big part in taking that to game shows around the world. So whether I was physically there or I was the person who installed that code onto the drive that was then taken across oceans, I had involvement in it, and that was really cool. And it was a long old process. And at the end of it, after all the work that had been put in for it to be the highest rated 3D Sonic game in the past 20 years was
Wow.
just phenomenal. And seeing the feedback, seeing how much people are enjoying this game, the response to the DLC that we've been putting out for it, the free DLC, it's just the whole journey has been so rewarding, so fulfilling. I absolutely loved every second of it. And then, of course, we launched Sonic Origins Plus on Sonic's birthday, July 23rd. June 23rd. I will lose my Sonic card for that. And that was awesome. Great to have Amy Rose playable in the classic games. So that was a really nice launch. We've had Sonic Prime come out, which has done ridiculously well on Netflix. Has just had its second season come out. It's getting very good reviews on that. And we've got Sonic Superstars coming this year. I'm not exactly sure when that is, but that looks to be a really exciting new adventure. So there's so much in the pipeline for Sonic at the moment, and I actually don't really get to know as much of it as I would like at all because it's all very secretive. But the stuff that I get to be involved in as always makes me really happy. Always brings a tear to my eye in a joyful way. So yeah,
One thing I'd like to really know is how you sort of came into these opportunities because obviously when you first started and you got this job, they were obviously well aware that you're a big fan. But presumably most people working for Sega are to some extent like fans of the product or whatever, or have like
yeah,
some sort of interest, right? But you're like a die-hard Sonic fan. Like I can
yeah.
attest to this. You were like that at school. You go on and on and on about fucking Shadow the Hedgehog. So believe me, guys, he's always been going on about this.
You can see behind me right here in
You're
the
right. But no, but like, all jokes aside, you are the perfect sort of person to be working in a job like this. But from a business standpoint, I wonder, can you walk us through the journey of like how you started getting these opportunities? Like, did you have to, like, for instance, throw yourself forward, or was it like, they just sort of track your work and occasionally they sort of test you with something new, like put a bit more responsibility on your plate? So talk us through that, and also like how your role has changed since you began with the company.
So obviously, again, I can't go into too many
What can you
specifics,
tell me, Jack? For fuck's
but what I
sake.
can tell you, I shall. So I've said this before. Sega really don't make you stay in your lane. If you express an interest in something or a passion in something, you can ask to be involved in it in some way. We have so many different groups and workshops and things like that at Sega, and you're really given opportunities. Now, with me working in IT, we support the game events. So things like TwitchCon, Gamescom coming up, EGX, Comic Con if we have stuff there, Paris Games Week. We, as the IT department, will support that, and we will have someone go to these events with the, to support the team, basically, to help them do what needs to be done at the events. And I was put on events where Sonic was being taken. I loved every second of it. It all actually started me going to TwitchCon Amsterdam last year, in which we didn't take any Sonic games, but we took Total War and the 2 Point games and Endless Dungeon and things like that. Really, really good event. And from there, the events later in the year came where Sonic was being shown with Sonic Frontiers. And I just made it very well known to the team that were dealing with Sonic Frontiers. Like, I'm so dedicated to this. I'm so passionate about this. I was so thankful to be able to play my part in it. So I got that involvement natively through my position, but I made it very well known from that point. Like, if there's Sonic stuff to be done, I want to, from an IT perspective, I want to be doing it. And I've been very fortunate that I have been able to be involved with most of the showcasing of Frontiers last year. So it really just, they don't make you stay in your lane. It's a fantastic company to work for. It really is. They really do realize the potential in people and let them explore that. And I think that's something that's so important in an employer these days. And it's helping me live my dreams to a large degree. So I can't complain there.
I'm very happy for you, man. I was stoked when I found out that you were working for Sega, and then now to be working on Sonic, like programming, games, merchandise, you name it. Like, it's called like. So I'm in an interesting spot now where like I'm pursuing my dreams, but like I'm not like at the level I want to be, but there's been some significant strides. So I'll hold my hands up and say I'm very grateful, not complaining by any means. But for the longest time, I've obviously sort of been, sitting in the arena watching everyone else sort of make it, and went through a range of emotions with that. And I've sort of settled on like, just keep doing your thing and congratulate everybody else, and you move on, right? But that doesn't make it any less difficult. Anyway, it's also the other side of that is it's a source of motivation, because I look at where you started and where you are now, and it's like it's just hard work and grafting and never giving up. I mean, this kind of started, what are we talking, like 2018, 2019, probably around the time that the first Sonic movie came into
it was about a year before that I was seriously making Sonic content, like consistently.
Right. But it was like that was like a quite a monumental moment.
That was the big moment.
Right. So you track it back, that's what, like 4 or 5 years of doing this, and like here we are now, and it's like I think about this a lot because I've just reached about 5 years acting. And I think if nothing else, probably the biggest lesson is like over time you get better. Do you know? I'm sure you notice the same, like with your content, with your work, like everything gets better over time because you get better, you grow, you learn. So let's explore that for a second. Like, what's maybe the biggest sort of lessons you've learned through your work so far and your content creation and everything?
Okay, Uncle Hatcher coming out here. So
Hey.
I think you really have to hone your craft. You have to do the hard work. And I don't want this to sound in a way like, oh, yeah, hard work and you can achieve anything, because you need a bit of luck in the world as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I know that a lot of people don't get that luck and they struggle and they keep grafting and they just don't seem to get anywhere. But the one thing I will say is it's extremely difficult. Sorry, it's extremely easy to get down on yourself,
Mm.
to particularly when you can see other people being successful, and to ride on yourself and just think you're not doing enough. But honestly, mate, like I made a lot of mistakes to get here. Okay, and I did not have things figured out. I only fell into IT at the age of 27. I was 27, 28. I was just doing mundane office jobs, kind of not never the same role consistently, just mundane, fill in the office worker here. And it was only in the last time that I did that, I took an accounting role at a job at a company called Escape Technology, who a fantastic company. And it got to the point where I was just like, this isn't me. And I was very interested in being a computer engineer because I was very friendly with the computer engineers there and loved what they were doing and had a real interest in it. And yeah, that was 27, 28. And that's when I started doing it. And then about a year on from there, due to the company relocating, and I, getting in touch with Sega, I moved into an IT position at Sega. And then, I've just turned 30. But this is, as you said, this isn't the longest journey I've been on so far. That we're only talking probably about 5 years of this real focus of knowing what I wanted to do and trying to make something out of it. It You don't have to have it all figured out. And I think particularly for people our age, we think like by 30, you have to have it figured out. And you know what? It's not the case. It's really not. Like, particularly if you look at things like how the economy is and things like that,
Sure.
buying a house and things like that. If you're living with parents, if you're still just flowing through life and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, it's okay. It's really this perception that we put on ourselves that we have to have it all figured out is from the generation before us who had it slightly easier than we did, and from ourselves. And we just got to dispel it, because it's okay to not know everything you want to do in life. There's time. There's still time.
I concur with this. I mean, everyone knows my story, but I'll just kind of rehash it real quick. Like, I think the point at which I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and this has actually shifted when I look back. I actually started acting in 2019. So it's like, what? I would have been 26, maybe 27 ish. Right.
Yep.
But it didn't, like, when I look back, like, I fell in love with acting, but I didn't know that was what I was going to do, because I was doing like loads of things like YouTube, streams, music, whatever, like just kind of getting back into creative stuff again
Yeah.
after so many years of being away from it. And like yourself, I had loads of different jobs. So I did marketing for several years, I did customer service roles, you name it. And, I'm still doing bits and pieces, jobs here and there just to kind of make ends meet now. But things are much more clearer where the goals are concerned. Like now it's
Yes.
like acting. That's the goal. That's the aim. And everything else is secondary. I still put the same level of effort into everything, but like, I've said this to my audience as well. Like, if I get that opportunity, if it comes, best believe I'm going to have to make some sacrifices,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be easy. But
Isn't that the thing in the end? Like, if you didn't
yes,
give it your all, if you even if you don't succeed, if you didn't give it your all,
mm-hmm.
how are you going to feel about yourself at the end of things when
that's
you're
the
looking back at your life?
that's the thing I'm terrified about.
Yeah,
I'd
it
I'd, I'd
haunts me.
rather, yeah, I'd rather go through life, bust my ass, and be a complete
Yeah,
failure. But no, I gave it my all. Then sit there in years from now, having played the easy route, and go, oh, but what if? What
yeah,
if? Maybe I could have been spectacular.
exactly. I've
Yeah.
said for the longest time, one day I will voice Sonic in something
I
official
think it's
Sega,
going to
right?
happen. It's going to happen
It
at some
it
point.
may not. It really may
No,
not. And
no,
if it
no.
doesn't,
Listen,
that's okay. But I'm gonna give everything, every fiber of my being to get to that position.
I bet you a tenner. it's,
Go on then.
it's going to
Gentleman's
happen.
wager.
It's going to happen.
I hope
Right?
so, man.
And when it happens, hopefully by that point I'll have a physical version of the show, right?
Yep.
And you'll come on and you'll present me the £10 note like that, like
Yep. That's
like yeah.
fine.
So there you go.
Yep.
There's a wager.
I'm completely down for that. Beautiful show.
I could honestly see it. Here's the thing as well. Um, I think it's important to set like realistic goals. Like one thing I've seen a lot. That there's a guy called Chris Van Vliet who in the wrestling industry is like an interview. He's done like big interviews for like celebs around the world. Anyway,
Okay.
one thing that he always says is vague goals get vague results.
Yep.
And I used to kind of be like, well, I don't know about that. And then I started sitting and thinking about it in the context of what I'm doing. And I was like, no, maybe he's onto something here. So like my main goal, and I've said this before, but I'll say it here, is to be a full-time actor.
Yes.
Like I want to be in a position where I do acting full-time as a job, or I have like enough projects that I can live on it.
Yep.
And then ideally I'd be able to still keep doing the podcast, live streaming, all the other things I love doing. But of course it depends how it works out. Because as I mentioned before with Sacrifice, there's always going to be certain things, be it sacrificing time, sacrificing money, sacrificing time away from like loved ones, whatever. It takes a lot of you. Like both of us right now, still actively putting a lot of time and effort into things all the time.
Yeah.
Stuff that you don't see behind the scenes, creation of content takes a lot. Like when this
And that's it,
podcast is
yeah.
done, I'll be sitting down and editing it, and that's time, and I'm happy to do it, but it's like it's always a sacrifice.
Completely. And I think this is something that, if my subscribers are watching this from, playing in the Discord and that, what's up, Hatchling Empire? I really haven't been producing content recently. And that's because I'm so busy with work. Like people don't understand and don't take this as a thing of like, oh, Sega are overworking me, because it's not the case at all. Like I love my work. I want to put the best I can into it, because everything I do, I think in the back of my head, in some way, this impacts Sonic. And it does in the weirdest way. So, say someone can't access a file because of something I needed to fix.
Mm-hmm.
That file then could lead to a delay in getting to someone else who needed some information from that then could go down the line. In some way, it messes with the flow of the company, and it can therefore mess with the flow of my Blue Boy. So I put so much into it and so much hard work, and then I'm trying to balance, my relationship at the same time, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult to find that time, and I love what I'm doing with life right now. And obviously with my DJing as well, like
Right, yeah.
That's just getting bigger and bigger. Big ups to Voodoo and Face Down. Come see me play one time. If you're listening to this, you're in London, you like the pop punk. I'm still waiting to get you down for one point. I'm definitely going to put you on the list for it.
I'd love to. Yeah,
I'd
that'd
love
be
to have
fun.
you down for it, man. You got
Nothing,
the metal upstairs, pop punk
nothing
in the
like
bedroom.
two old 30-year-olds that like go that was me last night. I was in a heavy metal bar,
Love it.
and I realized this actually. Like I met a bunch of people and we're like singing like crazy and starting a pit and everything, and I'm like, damn man, I haven't done this in so many years. Like there was so many years that I just wasn't being me. I don't know. It's weird to say. It's weird, but like
I did it. I took like 3 or 4 years out at one point,
crazy,
and I missed it so much. I think we need that. It is humans and that human interaction.
yeah.
In a comfort zone, like because music is just so beautiful like that. It's such a blanket for people to just. I'm in my happy place. I've got my songs. Like nothing else matters, and that human interaction with it is so special.
You know what's interesting as well? Like I hear these songs, like for example, I there was like a requests hour, right?
Okay,
So I was putting in all these different requests, and I requested Killswitch Engage, My Curse, right?
what a tune!
Right. And I was thinking like about because every time I hear that song, I'm immediately, 14 again and on the bus or school or whatever. And I
Yeah,
remember how I felt at the time, how life was at the time. Like I can picture it perfectly in my mind and the feeling and everything. And now it's a very different feeling because you always have that, but now you're out and about with other people who grew up listening to that song, or maybe they're younger and like they didn't, so to them it's like, oh, this is an oldie, and I'm like, what the fuck, how is Killswitch an oldie? But that's
kind
aging.
of is
That's
now if you think about it.
that's the weird thing. Yeah, oh my
We're getting
god.
old, man. We are
Oh
getting
fuck,
old.
I can't
Blink
accept
One Eight Two.
it.
Think mid 2000s. Those
Dude,
those iconic Blink songs were coming out.
it doesn't
We're
feel that
old.
long ago, it really
No,
doesn't.
but it was. That's the scary thing. Like if you think to how we were when we were like, if you think of those mid 2000s eras,
Yeah,
right? Think of what 80s music was then.
yeah, no, I think about
It's
this a
the
lot.
same difference
Hmm.
away.
Hmm.
That's difference. You go. I mean, I'm not formulating words very well right now, but you get my
No, no, no,
point.
no,
Like
no,
it's
no.
just,
I totally get that.
it's
Like when
crazy.
our parents were going on about, like, presuming they were on the younger end, they would talk about the 80s, like, oh wow, like, and get all nostalgic. And I don't get me wrong, I love everything about the 80s, and it's like one of those eternally cool eras. And now looking back, and it's interesting because I think there is a tendency to look at things with rose tinted glasses, and there's the
100%. Yeah.
nostalgia. But when I look back, like I genuinely think that the 2000s was like the last good era. Like, I don't know, culturally, I just feel like there was the right amount of technology. And after that, it kind of just went all downhill. And now it's a bit, you know,
Kind of get what you mean.
like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, there's a
But
lot that I'm thankful for now. But then there's other stuff that I'm like all this AI shit, for example, and how it's threatening so many different industries.
yeah,
It's a very crazy time right now. And I don't know. I know. Look at how we began the decade.
yeah.
We were all making jokes about 2020 vision and oh, it's gonna, the roaring 20s again and all this, and then fucking massive worldwide pandemic. Which, okay, fair enough. No one could have foreseen that,
No,
but it's and now we're in this space where I don't know. It's a weird time. It's a weird time.
I think we're in probably the most chaotic time we've
Mm.
been as a species. Not and okay. Before I start talking about this, let's just preface: like, I am not a scientist. I am
Really?
not. I'm not. No, I'm
No,
not
Professor Hatcher.
trained.
No.
No Professor Hatcher here. Okay, I have no inside knowledge or anything. So you can tell me I'm an idiot. I'm not qualified, but I feel we're just kind of at a breaking point with humanity. I think we're so focused on what separates us and not why we are the same. I
Mm.
think if you look at the voting, for instance, right in this country, for instance, in the UK,
Ooh, politics. Okay.
politics, but I'm not trying to be political about it, but politics. It's pretty much a 50-50 split.
No, it's not.
No, no,
That's
look
a
at the vote.
lie.
What was the last result? Was it 53%, 47?
Are you talking about
Often right.
Brexit? Okay.
Brexit was
That's
very
different.
50-50. But then when you look at the general, like Labour versus Tory each general election, there's not masses and
It
masses
dep-
in
it
it.
that depends. It depends
It
on
depends, but
because there's been times when it's shifted greatly. Like,
there
don't
has been.
forget.
Yeah.
Like, remember when we were growing up? Obviously, Labour was in power,
Yep.
and they'd gotten in like '97, I think,
Yep.
and that had been after like. And this is how weird and how cyclical things are. So
Yep. It was a good Tory cycle, wasn't it, before that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The Tories, this is what amazes me, that people's memories, people forget. Like, so the Tories were in, I think, like beginning of the '80s, right through until, yeah, like mid '90s.
Yeah.
and then Labour got in, and people had enough, and now we've had same again about 15 years, give or take, or 13, 14 years of Tories, and now
And it
people
looks
are
like they're
fed up
done.
again. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
But
probably.
this is what I mean, because it also kind of works into that cycles thing. It's like this site that people have set up, these, I'm this side, you're that side,
I hate all that.
it doesn't work anymore because it's two very large groups of people, and if one is completely represented, the other isn't. And it's all about what separates us. There needs to be a bit more coming together, sitting around a table, saying, actually, we have this in common. We have these interests in common. I just feel like we're so divided and this isn't, I'm talking on a general bigger scope outside of the UK,
Yeah.
as a species, we're so divided, and we've got to start coming together a bit more, compromising. I'm not saying compromising on atrocities and things that are wrong or things like that.
Mhm.
That's an extreme. Just having a conversation, just trying not to be so against each other, because everything's at breaking point, man. You can't go anywhere online without people arguing about something.
It's like that anime that was trending a while back. The one where it's like, I have no enemies, and people were doing all these different videos about it. And it's like,
Yep.
as much as it was a fun trend, at the same time, there's an element of truth in that. I think there are many people out there that, like I've always been that. I hate fighting. I hate
Yep.
confrontation.
Same.
You know,
Absolute same.
like I don't mind when people dislike me or hate me, because I understand that they're hating themselves by doing so. They're in pain. Like, do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
They're
Like it's
holding on to negative feelings. And
yeah, and like I want us all to be okay. Even the people that maybe I don't like, I still want them to be okay.
yeah.
Because I look at the fact that like being a human is difficult. It's lonely. It's hard. It's unrelenting. When you don't have someone by your side, it's very tough. Like I've been single now for quite a few years, and I don't tend to talk about this much, but I will say when I've discussed themes of loneliness and stuff like that, I do notice how tricky it gets when you don't have someone by your side and you're left to kind of deal with stuff, and that spiral that you can sometimes go down. Now, I found a way to kind of deal with that, but at the same time, that doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
I know to like avoid certain things. Obviously, like don't go drinking when you feel that way, for example,
Yes,
stuff
yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
But like at the same time, that feeling's still there,
Yeah,
and do you know what I mean? Like we need that togetherness. We need the company of others for so
yeah,
many reasons. But I think even like if you're an introvert, like I'm an introvert and I love my own time and space and stuff, but like, oh man, do I love the company of other people as well? Like
of
it's an
course, man.
interesting balance.
I mean, like that's why I'm very lucky to have my partner, Jess. She really is my rock with everything. Whether it
Happy
comes to
for you.
be if I thank you, I really appreciate it. Like if I upload a video, she's the first person to watch, like, comment. If I'm
Oh,
DJing, she is by my side, being my hype man the entire time. Um, like for this week, we had what we call a sample sale at Sega, where the licensing department, when they get samples from different merch that's made, they sell it all to people in the company.
mm.
Um, and it all goes to charity. It's a really really
Oh,
nice
nice.
thing. And I went and spent a bit of money on a fair few items.
A lot
A
by the sounds
lot,
of it.
yeah, not as bad as I did at the last one, but I'm just looking at some of it now, like,
You're just
oh,
looking at it like, I don't know if I can justify this.
yep, pretty much. And so she came and met me at the office to help me drag all these bags home and so on. Like
Oh,
she's the absolute best. But what I will say about the point you were making is nobody ever in the history of mankind or humankind, sorry, I don't want to, yeah, humankind has ever asked for this.
mm.
No one has ever asked for their existence.
I didn't ask to be born.
No, but no one did.
It's true.
And I'm not being funny. I don't want to sound really depressing here, but
No, I think it's
how
a good
many
point.
people, if given the option, right at this point would say, okay, no, reverse it. I would rather not have gone through this because life is work. Life is not easy unless you're born into, a trust fund with, never have to worry about anything financially for the rest of your life. It is a struggle otherwise.
See,
How many people would Thanos themselves?
this is where I'm like the total opposite.
I am as well. I believe nothing worth doing is easy.
That's the thing. Like I look at life and some of the things I've gone through throughout the years, and even the things I deal with today, and then I look at the things that give me happiness, that bring me joy in life, and the balance between the two. And do you know? I don't know if I've actually told you this. I've told my audience this. I've in my live stream. So I don't know if I've actually said it on the podcast. So maybe I'm saying it for the first time. I don't know. I've practiced gratitude a lot now, and
Okay.
I'm not religious. I don't really know what I am. I guess spiritual will be about the closest thing.
Yeah.
But every now and again, quite often, like week by week, I'll find myself sitting there just being like, thank you for everything, all this, thank you. Even sometimes just like, oh, this food, oh, this day, oh, the sunshine, oh, I got to pet a dog today. I don't know, oh, I got to do this new acting gig, every single time. And that's something I never used to do. Now I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm never going to not complain again. I'll certainly try not to, and I try to look at life as the basics. And if you got the basics, then you're laughing.
I'm going to nip that there.
Yeah,
You
go
have
on.
every right. You have every right to
Uh,
complain. This is
nah,
what I don't, this is one thing that I think people really lose sight of. Again, life is not easy.
it's true.
And yes, if you live in a negative mindset, then
Bingo.
you're always going to be negative. However, you have every right with how fucked up this world is every now and then to say, do you know what? This pisses me off.
Mm,
Just don't live in it. Just don't wallow in it and make your whole life that. But I feel like people are too quick to be like, oh, I shouldn't be negative. No, if you want to tell the world to F off because you're having a bad day, you do that. That's your right. You've earned that day. But don't live in it. Don't make it your life. Don't let it poison you.
I've said the same thing to my audience quite a few times. Like I think it's good to get it out and then get up and get shit
Yeah.
done
Get
still.
back on the horse.
But like I don't know, like I feel sometimes like when you do not I'm not gonna say it's a weird one. Like I think it's good to get it out of your system, but at the same time, when I look at the things that I complain about sometimes, and then I look at my life now and how it used to be, in a way I do kind of look at it and go, you know what, like this is ridiculous. Like, what the fuck are you complaining about? Yeah, things might not be exactly where you want them to be, but you're working towards them. And every now and again you get a breakthrough. And it's like, and I think going back to like the beginning of our conversation, things take time. I think
Yeah.
if you were given everything on a plate straight away, you wouldn't know what to do with it. You'd fuck it up.
Yeah.
How I Met Your Mother, the show. Imagine if Ted had
My
got every
favorite.
right, same. Imagine if Ted had got everything in season one. He would have fucked it up.
Right. Do you know
He would have
why?
messed it
He
up.
would. But do you know why? My biggest reason why I'm so glad he didn't get everything in season one. So I did a rewatch recently. Full disclosure, I
I'm
watch
due a
How I Met Your
rewatch.
Mother 5 times a year, at
5 times
least.
a year.
Yeah, it's my favorite show of all time. That and the Office, the American version.
I still need to
And
see
I'm
that.
very much like I like to put something on that I've already seen, so I
Mm,
don't need to give it my full attention.
like
So I go
comfort
through
viewing.
exactly. So shows like How I Met Your Mother, The Office, Peep Show, things like that. I consistently go through. Um, and if Ted had got everything in season one, we never would have got the hi, I'm Ted Mosby, and in 45 days we're going to meet and we're going to fall in
Mm.
love and we're going to have 2 children. And I know your boyfriend's going to probably turn up and punch you in the face, but I'm here because I want those extra 45 days with you. Man, it makes me cry every single time.
When you know the context, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
honestly, I'm in pieces every time I see that scene. I'm like, if Ken had got everything in season one, I wouldn't have got that, so scrap that.
But it's like I feel like with that whole show, like I've always used it as a good example because the whole point. I mean, there's so many good lessons there, but one of the biggest points it's trying to make is, you know, to meet the right person, you have to become the right person. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
it's not about that, you know, you're not good enough right now or whatever. It's more like if you look at yourself and you're really honest with yourself. So for anyone listening that's met their partner and you know you're really loved up and you're happy, think about who you were 5, 10 years ago, and then think about who you were, sorry, when you met your partner. Like there's growth there, and even like during the relationship you grow together, you know,
yep,
you become more compatible for each other, you work at it, you know, it's a partnership. But like that journey has to happen. I think you have to have certain experiences. Like right now, the frustration for me with not having met someone is that like I'm ready. Like I know I am. I know I'm in the right headspace. I know I've become that person. But see, then again, on the flip side, maybe I haven't. Maybe that I still need to do some growth. You know, it's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I think one thing that show also teaches us that I think is very. I kind of realized on my last rewatch, I was like, it toys for so long with the idea of Ted finding his soulmate, right?
Mm,
He finds two
nah, Robin is not his soulmate. Mm-mm. No,
from the first season,
denied,
from the first
denied.
season
No, dude.
to where we
Like
get at the end.
no, no,
People
no.
don't have to like that finale, right? But let's be realistic. They almost got there at the beginning. They had the break. He met the
The
mother of
whole
his
point
children.
was they
He
were
fell
not
in love,
right for each other.
but then they're together at the end.
Yeah,
They ride off into the sunset together.
because like, well, okay, if we're being real, I suppose
Which,
the story there is maybe it can happen later on when things have changed,
yeah,
circumstances are
don't get me
different.
wrong. I think
But
this is contradictory. This is an issue I have with the show, but
yeah,
it's something it does teach, and I'm like, that's interesting
I
because you
remember
set the
like
show up the other way.
when they broke up. Like I think what was it? There was two things. One was I think she either couldn't have kids or didn't want to have kids, something like that. Might have been.
Didn't want to have kids, didn't want to get married,
That was it.
and
And
that's what
obviously
Ted wanted,
that's Ted's MO, right?
which was fair enough as a breakup.
Yeah,
Like,
no, totally fair. No, not hating on that. But obviously, many years later, I suppose, yeah, okay, you know, he's had kids, he's had a wife, so he's gotten everything he wanted. So now he can be with her, maybe. But then I don't know, there was other thing like her career, like she's a career woman. Her
yeah,
career is her life. Um, that's not going to have changed 10, 15 years
no,
down the
yeah,
line, right? She's still the same person. She's just older and circumstances changed. And this is
yep,
why I felt like her and Barney were a better couple because he got it. He had his own life. And when they broke them up, I was like, this sucks, man. Like you built so
yeah.
long, like painting them together as like working, and it made sense. And then you break them apart just as a plot device, and it's like,
I mean, have you been watching How I Met Your Father?
no,
Right. So
come on.
I'm gonna bat for this now. First season, I wasn't sold. I wasn't sold. Second season, I'm not completely chips in, but I can tell it's the same writers.
Okay.
I'm getting the charm is starting to come through. And very interestingly, I'm not going to spoil this for anyone that may be watching this and is going to watch it. They pick up with Barney after. They've picked up on the aftermath, what he's doing now.
Mm.
And as much as I do think the breaking him and Robin up was a butchering of everything they'd done on Barney's character development so far,
Yeah.
seeing where he is now, I love it. I love it. It's from where they left him in the end of that finale, they really pick up on it. You get some closure between him and the situation with his dad when talking to someone else about the
Cool.
situation with their dad. Um, you get a bit more detail on Ellie, his daughter, and
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
and how
That
he
was
is.
one element I did like.
Oh,
Like
it
that
tears me up
was
every time.
yeah,
You
when
are
he's
the
like,
love of my life, and
yeah,
oh,
that was it sort of salvaged it a little bit, I think.
it did. But
Yeah.
they go into that. They go into how he is trying to change to be less of a sleazeball.
Yeah.
And it's all just from one episode cameo kind of perform like guest appearance, we'll say. And I love Barney. He's probably my favorite character. I think he's most people's
Yeah,
favorite
he's the
character from the
best.
show. But yeah, it was quite nice to see how they've developed his character, and it still feels very authentic. I do have a question for you though. Like, so I have this question with a lot of people.
Interesting.
Which How I Met Your Mother main male character are you?
Ted, hands down. That's
It's.
easy.
I've been told by
Hopeless
multiple.
romantic. Yeah, that dude. That one part of the reason why I love that show is because, like, as much as Ted is over the top and dramatic, that's exactly me as well. Overthinking, getting
Yep,
emotional.
me too.
Like for example, this is why How I Met Your Mother shits all over Friends because this is what they tried to do with Ross, but he was an
Yeah,
asshole.
yep.
Whereas Ted, like, don't get me wrong, he has some dodgy
Yeah, there are some
qualities.
moments, man, later
Yeah, he
down the line.
has to iron it out, but he always kind of gets like he learns a lesson and then see that was a thing that was like I'm not going to say there's no character development at all in Friends, but like for instance I feel like Ross gets progressively worse throughout the seasons and like
Yeah,
hypocritical, and
I think.
whereas Ted like irons out a little bit more, he gets a bit more. Yeah, he still fucks up and makes mistakes because he's guided by his emotions and his heart, but at
Yeah,
the same time he's he does learn and grow.
yeah. I think with Friends after season two, they dropped any sort of idea of character development and make the entire premise of the show Will Ross and Rachel get together. That's all it
Which
becomes about, and it's just not interesting anymore.
that's the thing. When at the time, obviously, like everyone else, was like, "Yeah, I want it to happen, want it to happen," because you get sucked in, and then you look at it as an adult, and you're like, "Oh no, 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 no! This is an awful relationship. They're very toxic. They should not be together."
But do you know why it worked? Because it was week by week.
What do you mean?
You weren't binging it. So you weren't
Uh,
like, can this fucking story just wrap up now? You were there each week, like, oh, will it? Oh, more breadcrumbs. Oh, more to follow.
do you
That's
know
how it engaged its audience.
that is a very good point. Like being able to binge watch a series now does totally change it.
Yep.
Like I just finished The Sopranos, which oh my god,
Yep.
wow.
Incredible show.
Yeah, but that is a slog because it's like every episode is an hour, right? It's like a mini movie every single
Yep.
time. And you really have to commit to it. But I would imagine that TV show was super exciting to watch week by week when it was first coming out because it was like, there was a connecting story, but also every episode felt very different, kind of like How I
Yeah.
Met Your Mother. So it kind of like keeps you drawn in and you don't have to see this is a problem I have like when they do this, for example, with like they'll do it with like Loki. They do it on
Yeah.
Disney, where like they have the whole series available, but they choose to do week by week. And I don't know about you, but I end up like forgetting. Like those
So
recaps, I need that because I just
I
forget.
so I have a really weird thing. You know how I am about comic books.
Yep.
Let's get into that straight away. So, for instance, Secret Invasion just came out recently. A lot of people don't like Secret
Mm,
Invasion. I did not hate Secret Invasion. Sorry, not sorry. But I did find that when I was watching it on a week by week basis, because I was more excited about what was coming next week, that was very much a thing. After I'd watched it on a week by week basis, I watched it all the way through, and it wasn't as strong because I'm like, there's no hype, there's no
See,
anticipation,
they
and also
lost
they
me.
butchered it at the end.
They've
They,
lost me. Like I'm about to finish it soon, but I'm like putting it off because I know it's the shits. But I know what's happened. Like, okay, can we go spoilers? Can we just go into it?
spoiler warning for the Christian Reeve
Spoilers!
podcast.
Spoilers!
Spoilers.
Right, I warned you, so don't have a go at me. Don't at me. So, as I understand, we kind of already knew the whole arcing storyline is basically this Skrull invasion happened in the 90s when Captain Marvel, became a thing,
Yeah.
and now the storyline is, oh, so this means that you never know who's a Skrull and who isn't. So maybe some of your favorite characters are still alive. Oh my god! And like the big reveal is that War Machine Rhodes, whatever his name is,
Rhodey.
Rhodey, is a Skrull. But they
Yeah.
said that I think the stuff online says that it dates back to Civil War.
Which is wrong. Right, I'm going to point this out because
Okay.
this is a big thing in the Marvel fan base. The director is wrong.
Uh,
And I know that's big of me. Some
director's
nerd on
wrong.
the director of the series is wrong. And I know that's big for me, some nerd on the internet
How can
on a
but
podcast
how can
saying
the
this.
director be wrong? I mean, they're
So
writing it,
he
aren't
says
they?
Civil
So
War, right? From from the only time that we don't see Rhodey with the leg supports that he needs after Civil War.
Yeah.
Do you remember he needed those because Vision
Yeah.
shot him out the sky? The first time that we see him without them is Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And there's no explanation for why he doesn't need them, right? When Rhodey is saved at the end of Secret Invasion from the bunker they were keeping him suspended in, he has the leg supports.
Okay. So I
The
need to finish
Rhodey
watching it.
in
That's why.
Secret Invasion does not have the leg supports. He's able to just walk.
Mm.
So while the director's saying that, I'm pretty sure good old Kevin's going to come out in his snapback and be like, I love Kevin Feige with all of my heart. He's going to come out and dispel this at some point because fans have literally picked it apart and said, no, because of the leg support. He needs the leg supports because his spine is fucked.
Mm.
And also, I think as a fact, this is mad because this is like changing Sonic's design all over again. The Marvel fan base will not accept that it was a scroll that said goodbye to Tony on that battlefield.
Right, exactly.
I'm not having it. That was Rhodey. That moment is like 10 years of build up that us as a fan base had waited for. No,
I hate to break it to you, kid. I think he's just a very good actor. He's a good actor.
But the leg support thing is the big thing of it because like he is dependent on them. They knew they couldn't fix his back. Like, yeah, but if he's in an Iron Man suit, in the War Machine suit, that does support him because it's a fucking hydraulic $1 billion suit. But when he's walking around normally, he always has the leg things on.
Phase 4 in general. I spoke about this with shout out to Buckmeister Cole.
Hello, Sal.
I kind of feel like it's a bit of a weak story. Like I suppose where this is headed is this could, especially if you consider that we've got the whole multiverse thing as well and the ability to traverse different universes. There's a lot to explore there. There's a lot we could do with that. I'm excited about all the potential with the X-Men stuff. You know, I think there's a lot of stuff you can flesh out there. I think actually Loki season 2 is actually going to hopefully pick up the momentum because everything else has been you know, there's just kind of like I feel like that the biggest issue is if the storyline is going to be by the time we get to like the next major movie, Avengers, whatever it will be,
Kang Dynasty,
right? It will be like, are we going to go to the point where you get different people from different universes, but you don't know who's a Skrull and who isn't? Does that mean you can bring back certain people? I don't know.
All right, let me do this. Let me do my big nerd rant. I've been wanting to do this for a while about Phase 4. I was actually going to do a video on this. I may still do it on the channel.
Do it. Definitely do it.
Phase 4 has been very hit and miss.
That's putting it lightly.
it's had some fantastic films like Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I personally didn't hate Quantum Mania, but that's because I very much like its villain.
They made him look like crap in that, though.
He was comic accurate in that, man. That comic book outfit was pretty spot on.
I'm not talking about how he looks. He looks brilliant. I'm talking about how he's portrayed. Because so far, don't forget, the first, and I said this in the last episode, but where I spoke about this, the past 2 introductions to this character. Now, like, let's say you're not a comic book fan, right?
Yeah.
Or you know, you're just going on what you're being shown in the movies, right?
Yeah.
The first instance is Loki. in Loki, right? Yep. He explains everything, he gets killed instantly, and then it shows you like, oh my God, like, you know, he's everywhere. And then it felt big, it felt huge, right? Fast forward to Ant-Man, and he just gets punked out really easily. Now, granted, that's in one specific universe, but still, it's like we're trying to build him as a threat. You know, look at how Thanos was built.
Yeah, but he's not dead.
In that specific universe, you mean?
That one from Ant-Man,
I'm pretty sure he's not dead, didn't he?
No. You just pissed him off big time.
He's dead. In that specific one, he was dead. I'm sure of it.
He's not dead. He's incapacitated. He's not dead.
So millions and millions of metal ants can't kill him?
No.
Come on.
He's Kang the Conqueror. He's shrunk again.
Mm.
He's shrunk either into a completely different subsector of the quantum realm. Now, what we're hearing, and these leaks are normally fairly accurate, so potential spoilers for the upcoming Avengers films. But Avengers Kang Dynasty is going to deal with all of the Kangs that stopped that Kang. So Immortus, Rama-Tut, Silver Centurion, when we saw the Colosseum of Kangs at the end, will be about them because they're like, the Avengers are touching the multiverse. We've got to stop this now. And that will be that big one. At the end of it all, the Kang that was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, he will play the role of Doctor Doom in Secret Wars.
Mad.
So he won't be Doctor Doom, but he will be, after this massive multiversal war goes on with the Council of Kangs and the Avengers from across the multiverse.
Yeah.
He will take reality and he will piece together what he can from incursions that happen of universes colliding into each other, and he will make one world, which will most likely be called Battle World, as it is in the comics, because that's what it is in the Avengers Secret War comics, and it's called Avengers Secret War. And from that, he will be God. And it will be down to everyone that because he does save people. He saves entire sections of universes. He tries to make a functioning world. It will be down to those Avengers and everyone else, X-Men, to try and take him down, take the power of God from him. And then from there, the Fantastic Four go off and start recreating the universe properly. That's how it goes in the comics, except it's Doctor Doom, not Kang. But the leaks are suggesting it will be Kang that takes that Doctor Doom position. So it's all making sense. It's just how it's intricately woven. And I think the problem they have with the multiverse stuff, and it's something that I've always said I was worried about, is I've been following this for a long time, man. I've been following this shit since before it was MCU, as you have as well. Like when it was, we had Sam Raimi, Spider-Man, those awful Ghost Rider movies, the original Fantastic Fours, all that, right? You can't just give me fan service anymore. You can't just dangle the keys in front of me and say, "Oh, look at this character from this universe." I'm not buying. That's not enough to sell me.
I agree with that.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Hated it.
I loved Reed Richards, John Krasinski. Yeah, I loved seeing Professor X back.
But
I love seeing Black Bolt back. It's not enough.
Professor X got punked out straight away, and I was just like, "Oh, she can do that." I'm not being funny. She can do that. She's that powerful in the comics. Charles is when she goes mad and she's like destroying realities in the House of M comic. Charles is like trying to keep her asleep and barely do it. I don't have a problem with that. I accept that Scarlet Witch is a really powerful character. That's no problem. The issue I have is like you introduce this, reintroduce this huge character and then just kill them off straight away. Do you know what I mean? It just feels a bit...
It's because none of those characters are going to be the main cast. Like, John Krasinski isn't going to be Mr. Fantastic in Fantastic Four. Patrick Stewart isn't going to be the new Professor X. Although apparently now there's rumours they want to pull McAvoy and Fassbender back. And I'm like, please just stop cherry-picking stuff from other universes that you want to keep here because it doesn't... Continuity-wise, this doesn't make sense. And this is kind of what I was going back to before. Stop dangling keys in front of my face and make it worth something for the plot. Like, look, Toby and Andrew was one of the greatest cinematic experiences I've ever had in my life. I didn't think anything was going to top Cap getting the hammer. And then, like, 2 years later, oh, shit, that was the same level. Okay, people, like, screaming with happiness in the cinema. Love it. That's great, but now I want it to matter to the plot. If you're going to bring these people in, let it have something to do with the narrative of the film besides fan service. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine coming back for Deadpool 3. Great. He's got the comic outfit. Oh my fucking God, I'm so on board. As Ryan Reynolds said, we're not touching Logan. This is separate from that. Fine. That's what I want. Don't just dangle it in front of my face for the sake of it. Do something different. Don't ever fuck with Logan because that film is an absolute masterpiece. Just do something. So this is its own thing. And this is going to go in. This is MCU now. So will Hugh Jackman keep coming back? Who knows? But let's just make it plot centric. Don't just be like, here's Hugh Jackman. That's what I want. That's what I want going forward. Rant over.
I agree, man. All right, I'm going to switch things up
Go on.
massively and throw something at you that I'm not really sure how you're going to react to this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Um, so if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it.
Okay. Okay. Go.
So you've been on the show 7 times.
Yep.
We've spoken about Sonic at nauseum,
Of
and
course.
I love talking about Sonic. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. One thing I've never asked you about, which I've only really learnt about this in the past year because I've been kind of looking into internet lore and
Okay.
doing my research. What are your thoughts on Sonichu? And do you know, when I was sitting down writing the question, I was thinking, does he know about this? And I'm like, of course he knows about this. Like, how can you not know about this? But
I do.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. We don't have to go into anything about Chris Chan because that's a whole show waiting to happen. I want to kind of focus more specifically on this character as it pertains to Sonic, as
Okay.
it pertains to like issues of copyright, stuff like that. So, like looking at
Okay.
your just kind of general thoughts on this character.
Um. I mean, I don't. I should probably preface this before we get into saying I don't speak on behalf of Sega. None of what I say is representative of anything that Sega says. You know, the standard disclaimer. I'm speaking as my own individual. Um, I I implore creativity. I think it's great to like if copyright was a complete thing, I wouldn't be able to sit here and draw pictures of Sonic and characters and things like
Right.
that. Like, so I completely support one's right to create their own things. As to some of the content that Sonichu went down and surrounds it,
That
it's not my cup of tea.
mm,
I mean no discrimination towards anyone whose cup of tea it is. I just it's a weird one. It's a relic from a bygone internet age, isn't it? And the problem is it's become so intrinsically linked with how problematic um, Chris or Christine Chandler is. I'm not sure which one going by now, so I mean no offense by using
Christine, I
either
think.
one. I know Chris has it's been Chris, it's been Christine, it has flip flop back once or
So
twice.
I think
Um,
so. Christine still goes by Chris Chan because obviously Chris is short for Christine, but
yeah,
they identify as she, her.
okay,
Like,
so I meant no offense, of course, but yeah, very problematic individual. Really can't support any of the stuff that's come out recently.
and again,
Particular.
I didn't want to focus so much on that.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I
I
know
think,
completely, but it's so difficult to separate them
well, okay,
because if I think Sonichu, I think of the picture with the chain around their neck, the huge Sonichu chain that
oh
that
yeah, yeah,
Chris
yeah,
wore at
right,
all the
yeah,
convention.
yeah, yeah.
That's the first thing my mind goes to,
Well,
which is
okay. There's a few things I want to explore with you on this because this is more where I want to kind of guide the conversation. Because
yeah,
I knew when I was going to ask you this, there'd be some interesting stuff to flesh out here. So,
yeah,
talking about copyright, and I've had like disagreements with my housemate over this because we like to talk about this quite a lot.
yeah.
And he one time we were sitting there playing Mario Kart, right? And it almost turned into an argument because he
As
was
it does,
like
yeah.
he was adamant that Chris Chan was able to claim sort of like some ownership, creative rights over the character, and I immediately was like, "No, what do you mean? It's owned by Sega and I suppose Nintendo, Pokemon Company, whatever, right? Like, so they can't possibly make any money off of it, but they have consistently, and apparently there's something in law that actually protects this."
See, I don't.
Excuse me.
I'm not an expert in copyright law,
No, me
so I
neither.
don't.
But
I
like
don't know.
there's something out there which because it's kind of like it's from what I read, it's like something along the lines of like transformative content. But I'm just surprised over the years that considering the fact that Chris Chan has made money through the comics, through various other things they've done with this character.
Selling merch and
Right. I'm surprised that Nintendo or the Pokemon Company never sued them or kind of made a claim or something
I
like
mean,
that. Blows my
yeah, I'm
mind.
not sure. I
Because
mean, like, I drew a
that's the
picture of
thing.
Sonic in Spider-Man suit. So his own so
Mhm.
it's full head shape, but like it was the
That's
full
pretty
Spider-Man
cool.
suit. I thought it was quite cool. And I did the proper spider symbol on there, like on the center of the chest.
Mhm.
And I suppose if I tried to make something off of that, Disney could turn around and say that logo,
Yep.
that's ours.
Hmm.
But
And that Disney would go for you.
and Disney
They'd
would, yeah,
absolutely hunt you
100%.
down. Go for it.
But then, well, to be fair, I've seen some clothing companies recently that are producing stuff that I'm like, yeah, the copyright owners do not know about that clearly, because otherwise that'd be straight off
And
the
probably just trying their
marketplace.
luck as
Yeah, oh,
let's
yeah,
see how
yeah.
long
I
they
think
can
that's
get
a lot
away
of
with
it.
it.
Yeah, because all they'll get is a cease and desist to start,
Well,
probably.
it's like,
And if you stop,
do you remember when we were growing? I mean, okay, this is a bit different, but remember when we were growing up and we used to go to Camden Town and there was like all those bootleg, Metallica t-shirts, for example.
oh
Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I got like so many of my bootleg shirts, and they were great quality, but
yeah,
like they were all bootleg,
oh
100%.
yeah, of course.
But you don't really see that anymore. Like they've kind of ironed that out quite a lot.
Yeah, a little bit. I think
Like
the
you
music industry has kind of taken hold of that because they're not making money from
mm,
music anymore. They are making money from merch and stuff like
which
that. So
is
I think they've
mental,
cracked
isn't
down.
it? When you
It
think about
is
that, like the music industry, and you don't make money from music anymore.
literally
What?
Spotify, pay your artists more.
Uh,
Jesus Christ, 0.0001 penny per play. The whole
Massive.
reason they're using your app is because of these artists. Come on, give them more money.
Um, let's bring it back to Sonic. What do you think the future holds for the franchise? Because obviously, I think the last time we spoke, it had hit 30 years. So,
Yes, I think we're on 32 now this year.
right. So, like,
So 31 last time we spoke.
where can we
32
really
this year.
go forward with this?
I mean, Sonic is probably more popular now than he ever has been. The
Based on
movies,
what? Just like
the movies.
money and the movie? Okay.
He's a household name again. He is completely a household name again. Kids are. I've never seen so much Sonic merchandise out there. You go into a Tesco now, you will find Sonic toys.
Mm.
Like kids are eating this stuff up. Every kid is getting Sonic stuff for home. I see kids going to school in the morning when I'm on my way to work with Sonic backpacks and stuff like that, walking past the office. Like bigger
Wow.
than it's ever been. We've got the third movie coming next year,
I was
which
going to
is
ask you about that. Yes, that's happening.
yes. So December 2024, Shadow the Hedgehog will be
The
making his
villain.
live action debut. So
Got to be the villain, surely.
here, yeah, I think they're going to do Sonic Adventure 2. I don't know, but from what the writers have said online, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Sonic Adventure 2.
I think the logical move there is bring in Shadow as a villain, and then they're definitely going to go for some sort of Sonic universe deal, aren't they?
I
Probably.
mean, yeah, you've
Might
got
as
the
well.
Knuckles show coming.
Yeah.
The spin-off show from the movie with Idris Elba as Knuckles on Paramount
Cool.
Plus. That'll be coming soon. And then you've got movie 3. They want to build a Sonic cinematic universe.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't know this. I don't have insider info, but like just from what I'm seeing from how they're building this and spinning off stuff, I would love for us to get like a Shadow movie down the line or something like
I was gonna
that.
say that would be a no-brainer, I think.
Yeah,
Especially with like how it looked years ago. Like I remember you playing like that PS2 game to death, and
yeah,
it still holds up all these years later. Like the character is very intriguing, like also just from a visual standpoint, because obviously all the Sonic characters somewhat are like visually reminiscent
yeah,
of Sonic. And Shadow is the most obvious example of that. Like,
yeah. He's almost like the antithesis to him in a way.
yeah, it's an intriguing kind. There's a lot to explore there from a
I
storyline
mean,
perspective.
one thing that I think is really interesting is Jeff Fowler, the director of the Sonic movies, worked on the cutscenes for Shadow the Hedgehog the game,
Ooh.
which are some of the most beautiful cutscenes we've had in the series. They're very CGI, very beautiful. He knows this character very, very well. And a lot of people were a bit critical that they've skipped Sonic Adventure 1 in terms of the movies and gone straight to Sonic Adventure 2. And it's like, no, it makes complete sense. Shadow is the second most popular character in the entire franchise.
Wow, really?
And yeah, he's every time we poll it, he's the second after Sonic.
Is that based on merch sales as well, or is that
Just general polling, asking
okay?
nearly like every year or so. I see the Sonic social media is putting out something that's trying to gauge this interest, or
Mm.
you see a YouTuber do it or something like that, and it's always shadow second to Sonic.
Okay, that's
It
interesting.
makes sense for them to capitalize on this. Um, and because Jeff Fowler knows the character so well and loves the character so much, I can't wait to see what comes out of this, man. Like the concept art for the post-credit scene in the last film in Sonic 2, it had Gerald Robotnik full of bullets up against the
Mad.
wall. Like they had him fully facing the firing squad and everything, and that didn't make it into the movie. But it seems like they're pretty dedicated
I
to
love that
keeping
you
the dedication to the source material.
I love that you call him Robotnik as well.
Oh
Like
yeah, that's his
same
name.
here, brother. Same.
So that's it. So this is I always have to explain this to the general audience because people don't understand this. But Doctor Robotnik was his English name, his Western name, right?
Ah.
In Japan, he's always been called Doctor Eggman,
Oh
and
wow. I never knew
and then
this.
in Sonic Adventure 1, he was still called Robotnik, and Sonic called him Eggman as an insult to take the piss out of him. Robotnik decided from that point, instead of Sonic being able to use it as an insult against him, he was going to own it. And then it wouldn't work. Sonic's jabs wouldn't hit him. So from then on, he calls himself Dr. Eggman. He is still Dr. Robotnik.
Huh.
He just refers to himself as Dr. Eggman, so Sonic can't take the piss out of him.
Oh, there you go. Learned a bit of Sonic lore that I
Bit of
didn't know
Sonic
about.
lore.
Yeah. Because I knew there was something there where they like
Yeah,
rebranded it or whatever, but like I didn't know that specifically.
yeah,
That's
that's the whole
interesting.
reason.
All right. There we
Yeah,
go. Um, as we kind of like draw things to a close, I've got like a bunch of different questions I want to ask you.
go on.
I'm sort of like testing out questions, I guess. So
Okay,
you're my test subject.
okay.
But it's fun stuff. I don't know. Like I have like this list of questions. It's like I suppose I kind of prepared it. Like literally, I'm not kidding. There's like loads and loads and loads
Oh,
of
wow, okay.
questions. Yeah, it's like in the event that like if I ever don't have a show prepared, or it's like a last minute deal, or I just don't have anything to ask a question, ask of my guest, I'll go here because a lot of the time with questions, it's you know you riff off them. Do you know what I
Yeah, of
mean?
course.
Like you, because I think this is the interesting thing about interviewing and discussions is as long as you're invested in the conversation, you can ad lib, you can guide it, whatever. Like you just need these as like starting off points, throwing off points,
Yeah, of
you know.
course.
And if there's stuff there, you can flesh it out and go and move with it. If there isn't, just keep asking till something gets rolling, you know.
Yeah, no, I feel that completely.
But I did want to ask you this because I think this is interesting.
Yeah,
Earlier, you mentioned about making mistakes and how you've learned from that. And I
yeah.
heard this beautiful question the other day, and I totally am stealing it. What's the biggest mistake you've made that you've learned a valuable life lesson from?
Hmm. I would say I made quite a lot of financial mistakes in my time.
Same.
I like spending money, particularly when I don't really have it.
Same.
That big problem that a lot of us face. And someone said this to me when they were my age now, and I wish I had listened to them. Start saving. They said this to me when I was about 21. Start putting money aside because you don't want to get to your 30s and then start saving because it's so difficult. And guess what?
Yeah.
I did exactly what they told me not to do. And I can tell from your face, you're probably
It's
in a
not like
similar
I
boat.
haven't tried.
No,
there's been
do you know
times
what?
when I've
It's
actually
so
had
difficult.
savings,
Yeah,
and then just
stuff
life
happens.
Yeah, life just
Life gets in the way.
Yeah,
No,
and
I completely get it. It's not easy, but do you know what? If you're in your early 20s and you're not paying rent to be at home, for instance, and you're working a full-time job, and while you could piss it up the wall all weekend, just try and put some money aside every month because honestly, even if it's a little, that adds up. And when you get to my age, you'll be like, I actually have something to sit on to start planning for my future. Because Jesus Christ, man, it's difficult. It's not easy. So yeah, that would be. I've made some awful financial decisions in my past, and I would say make better ones. That would be my piece of advice. Not easy, but try.
What is the most unexpected piece of advice you ever received?
Do you know what? It's going to sound really sad, but it was a TikTok.
Mm.
It was a TikTok, and it was of John Cena,
Oh,
and it
cool.
was the best piece of advice he'd ever been given. And it was. I'll give some context to it. It's because I feel like this has kind of been lost in people's work ethic in general recently, because I think we are part of a more empowered kind of demographic now, where we're like, no, we won't be treated like shit in the workplace, and actually we know we do want these conditions and these benefits and stuff like that. So it's kind of unheard of, but I don't think it detracts from that lesson necessarily. But John Cena said, be the first person to turn up,
Mm.
work harder than everyone else, and be give out the same energy as you receive. And I was just like, yeah, because I kind of do that. And it's something that I didn't really expect to hear so much, because I said we are kind of getting in this thing now of like, rightfully so, we expect more from an employer, but I think also there are some cases on the internet where that gets pushed to absolute extremes, where there is a very, very small, very, very, very small amount of people that are just like, well, I'm just going to clock in and do the bare minimum I can until it's my moment to clock out, and I'm going to take my money and I'm going to go home. And I'm just a bit like, yeah, you can do that, and you're perfectly within your right to do that. You get paid for what you do, but when it comes to things like wanting future opportunities within a company and stuff like that, doing things like being the first one there and making sure you are the person working hardest goes a long way. Definitely goes a long way.
What quote most resonates with you?
It's a quote from Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic 06. And it is a quote I live my life by. And it's going to sound kind of corny, but I'll give a bit of an explanation to it. And it's, if the world chooses to become my enemy, then I will fight like I always have. And for me, it's a question of your morals. And it's like, even if the world decides that you are then the enemy, you keep sticking up for what you believe is right. You keep doing the things that help other people. You keep going, because the struggle is real, but when you come out the other end of it, do you know what I mean? It'll mean something. And that's kind of what I try and live my life by. You know, if the whole world tomorrow decides that I'm the enemy now, well, I'm going to keep putting out the same positive energy I'm trying to put out. I'm going to keep putting in the same amount of hard work and dedication that I can, and nothing's going to change for me. I hope, things will improve, but I'm not going to change who I am in the face of what everyone else wants to throw at me, within reasonable limits. Let me just caveat that, because as times change and we do become more tolerant and more open to more things in the world, you do have to change your perspective. It's probably good once a year to just take a look inward and be like, where do my morals sit on certain issues now?
Hmm.
Like, for instance, if you think in the 90s, right, when we were born, gay marriage wasn't a thing. It wasn't particularly accepted.
No, not
Look
till.
at it now. I wouldn't ever question it.
Mm.
Fuck yeah, let gay people get married. Love is love at the end of the day. But we that wasn't the way we were taught in the 90s. And if you think
Well,
it's like a 20-year shift, 30-year shift,
that's the thing though. Like, I feel like with our generation,
we
you know,
always knew. We always
that
knew it was okay. There was
yeah,
no
like
issue.
there was the whole thing like when we were at school where like the word was kind of used in a derogatory manner. But do you remember like for a while it was kind of popular to use the word, but it meant more like something is crap, like this thing sucks.
Yeah,
And there were
yeah.
people like at our school that were gay that would use that word as well. And
I
then
actually once had an interaction in school where like full transparency, I quite offended someone
oh wow, okay,
because they were gay, and
mm,
I used gay in that way.
yeah,
Um, and if that person's watching now, I really do apologize again. That was never my intention. But I do think as well, what we do need to think about with that is that word did mean something different.
There
When it
was
was
a
being used
shift.
in that way, it wasn't ever in regards to a homosexual individual.
Yeah, I feel like
You know what I
there was
mean?
only a
But it
small amount
wasn't,
of people that ever actually thought that way.
yeah. But
Like, I
then
mean,
what
just
happened? We
well,
changed our behavior.
there was a shift. You remember the
Yeah.
assembly,
Yeah. We stopped using it.
the
We
awkward,
realized our
horrible
behavior.
assembly.
That was awful. But that's it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Times change. So as much as what I'm saying, I do live by that quote. I do think it's very important to maybe reevaluate once a year, every 6 months, and
I
just be
think
like,
it's.
actually, how is society changing? Well, how are my views changing? How can I be more
I think that's
sensitive? Maybe.
solid. Like one thing I've noticed is the world will always change around you, and you have to adapt.
Yeah,
But if your heart is in the right place, I feel like that adapting process is very easy.
yeah, I agree.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like for instance, if you take like the whole gender pronouns thing, like I get a bit like I'm not gonna lie, I get a bit confused sometimes. But if someone turns around to me and says, "Oh, can you just use this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure," and that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's not really a big
yeah.
deal if you just kind of like show respect and just be
I never
understanding.
list mine, and I feel like it's because it's an area that I know very little about. I'm not affiliated with it in any way. That's not me saying I'm opposed to it, but like it's not talking about me, and therefore I feel very strange giving my opinion on something which doesn't affect me at all. And like for me to put like him on my profiles, I feel would be kind of virtue signaling because it's nothing that I involves me.
Okay,
And I
well,
feel like it would be not maybe not virtue signaling, but I feel it'd be slightly disingenuous of me to start doing that
well, to play
because I'm
devil's
just not
advocate,
educated enough.
do you not feel that maybe it might show that you're in support of this thing? You know, like you
I
support.
understand that, but what is the support of a straight white male to someone like that? Do you know what I mean? Like
Well, I
what
mean,
do I know?
it
What right
shows
do
that
I have?
it
You know?
shows that you take the whole concept seriously. Like
I
you know, you.
do. I think I do, but I just don't want it to come across as like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about in that regard.
I get
I'm
you.
not
I get you.
educated in that. I'm not. It's just
But then
like,
people might say, "Well, why don't you educate yourself?"
and if I have a conversation with a trans individual, which I do on a regular basis, that is me learning and educating myself.
Mm.
But I'm also, I don't know. I feel like in the same way, it's not for me as a white male to go. I can stand up for racism, stand up against racism, but I can't. Is it really for me to be out there saying, telling people what's what? I'm not the one affected by it. It's for the people that are feeling the negative shit to say, this is how I want society to change. It's not for me to say how I want society to change in that regard because I'm not feeling it. I don't understand it. I can't have that full grasp of the situation because it's not happening to me. I can only be told. I can't experience it. And therefore, is it completely genuine of me to go out and
Mm.
tell other people how to amend their behavior in that regard? I don't know. I'm asking the question. Maybe it is. Maybe that is something that I need to do as a person. And do you know, if any of your viewers want to comment on this and let me know, because
Do you know
I genuinely
it's
don't know my
interesting.
place in the world on this one.
I've checked my stats. So fun fact, in I don't know on YouTube, but I do know my audio listeners about I think it's 8 or 9% of my listeners are non-binary,
Oh,
which I
okay,
found
awesome.
very interesting.
Hey guys.
Hello, and I don't know. Like I think with this, like I've come across this every now and again, and I've had some interesting conversations over the years. And I think the biggest thing I've kind of learned is just kind of try to show your support for things. Do you try to educate yourself with things? I get some of where you're coming from. Like I think that like you know I'm not going to sit here and ever pretend to be like an authority on these things. Like I'm just learning like yourself. But I think it does help. Like I'll give you an example, right? When I do live streams, occasionally you get people come in and they say like, "Hey, do you support trans? Do you what are your pronouns, etc." And I just say what it is. You know, I just go like he him, and yes, I do,
Mm.
and and I found that that's been quite positive. I found that there's been people who've kind of found, I suppose, my live streams as being like a safe place.
Yeah, I like that.
So I think that, like, especially because you've got a community as well, and I don't
Yeah,
doubt that there's probably people in your community that are non-binary
yeah,
and would kind of appreciate that from you. But I do also understand that, like, that doesn't mean that, like, suddenly you just change everything up and, like, become an expert on this. It's like, I suppose it's you do the necessary education and you
yeah,
always just kind of keep your ears and eyes open and you just do your
yeah.
best, isn't it?
I mean, I actually had one of my trans viewers reach out to me.
Oh,
I think it
cool.
was last year, and they asked if I could make a trans version of the term hatchling,
Okay.
which is what I call my subscribers. And I actually said no, I'm not going to do that because at current point, hatchling doesn't mean male or female. Hatchling is completely inclusive.
Yeah, like
It
gender
doesn't matter
neutral.
what you are. You are a hatchling. You don't even have to be human to be a hatchling. You could be
A
entire
chicken.
different species. You could be a chicken. There could be chickens in the hatchling empire. And I was like, I don't want to create barriers.
Yeah, I get what you're
I
saying.
want that to be a completely all inclusive thing. And I think my stance on all of these things in the world at the moment is um, do what makes you happy. I have no issue with anyone doing anything that makes them happy, as long as
Mm,
it's not hurting anyone else. And
same.
what I would really stress is if you think it's hurting you, like if you think someone identifying as the other sex is hurting you, or you think that someone loving the same sex is hurting you, it's time to reevaluate.
I
Because
think
how is
so.
that
Yeah.
really hurting you?
Well, it's like I was
It's not
telling a
causing you
friend.
anything.
I was telling a friend this the other day. Like, I worked in this place and we had someone join our team who was trans. So
Hmm.
they used to identify as a girl, and now they identify as a boy.
Yep.
And, like, my manager at the time just kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, just so you know, they go by these pronouns. Okay?" And I'm like, "Yep."
Yep.
And that was kind of it. And I remember there was someone on my team who was, like, sort of struggling with that, and I was like, "Well, what's the problem?" And they were
Hmm.
like, "Well, like, I see a girl when I look at them," and I'm like, "Okay, but is it really that hard to just switch? You're gonna make mistakes. Don't go wrong. I make mistakes,
Oh
but,
yeah.
like, you
It's a
just
broad new landscape, isn't it? You
you
know.
just you just correct yourself. Like, I
Yeah.
always think back to that old, super old episode of Star Trek, DS9 or something, I think it
Hmm.
was, and so yeah, Star Trek's always way ahead of this shit. So there was a character who I guess was non-binary, or, like, they have this thing where there's a species that's this is, like, really nerdy. It's like
Yeah.
a symbiote species where the there's like a host and then the actual organism. So the
Yeah.
organism obviously gets different hosts. So in one life they are male, they might have a male host, then they have a female
Like
host, right?
Venom, essentially, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Except that the host is like different genders,
Yeah.
etc. So this Klingon meets this character called Curzon Dax. I think that was the name of the character at the time. And they'd previously met this character as a male, and they were like, "Oh, it's my good friend." Da, 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 da. And he calls Dax by their former name,
Oh, okay.
and so then Dax then says, "Oh, well, now it's Curzon Dax," and he's just like, he stops for a second, and he goes, "Ah, it's my friend Dax," and just,
Okay.
like, what, embraces them with the new name,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's a perfect example of just, like, how easy it is,
Yeah.
just that done.
It is. I think it's a very tricky topic in the sense of what I was saying previously about we're too divided. There's too much attacking. Just sit. If you have really like anti-trans views, sit down with a trans person for an hour and just have a conversation.
I
Don't
think I
argue
think the
with each
prob
other. Don't
the
shout each
problem
other.
the problem with that specific viewpoint is that, like, those people are not willing to have those kind of conversations and
No,
sit down
they're
and
not. But
listen.
that's the problem. This
Right,
is what
but
I'm saying.
that,
We're
I don't
too
know that that's
separated.
specific. Yeah, well, yeah, okay, to that overarching point. But you're always going to get people like that in society.
Of
You
course.
know, there's always going to
But
be people at the fringe who just kind of have extreme views or whatever, and there's just no getting through to them. I mean,
but
all you
what
can really
if?
do is just keep trying to educate people and keep try to just to have that open dialogue and welcome people as well. Like
Yeah.
never push people away and just be like, you ever want to talk? We can talk.
But we are always going to have that divide, as you say. But if
Mm-hmm.
we could improve that by just 1%,
Absolutely.
just 1% more conversations, think how much hate is eliminated from that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes an impact, man. It's literally the whole thing of like the beat of a butterfly's wings. Creates a tornado halfway across the world. The little actions we can have, I think, as a species by sitting down with each other and having that conversation, even if it's only a tiny amount that goes on, just somewhat slightly improves the world we live in.
This is why, because I remember a few years ago, um, someone criticized me for being a fencer and for not taking stands on certain things. And it comes from my fear of confrontation. I hate confrontation.
Exact same
And
here.
I still like my way of functioning is no, if we're going to have a disagreement, we're going to sit down and talk about it. You know, I
Yeah,
will wait until you're not angry anymore and then we can talk about it. I'm not going to have a fight. That's not
yeah,
how I work. And I refuse to be a part of that. But I do understand people being angry at like you do have to take a stand on
yeah,
things. Sometimes you have to take a stand. And so that's something I've been attempting to do more and more. I don't like actively get involved in the fight, you know,
yeah.
but
I'm the same.
I avoid things like politics and religion as much as I can, um, because you know it's beliefs. It's I try to focus on like myself and just putting out something positive to the world.
Yeah, like those are
Obviously,
your beliefs. These are mine.
yeah,
We don't have to agree on them. Let's move
right,
forward. Yeah,
right.
I'm exactly the same.
But sometimes there are certain beliefs that people have that like I feel like as a society we can all kind of agree or wrong. Like for example, racism, like you know,
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. There's no room for it. But
no,
there's always going to be those people that just don't get it, and I think you do kind of have to take a stand on those things. I mean, this is just my personal opinion.
no.
I
I agree. I
feel
agree.
you know,
But one thing I think should be stressed is in this new age that we live in of much more mental health awareness.
getting there.
Don't put yourself in the firing line. Not saying that you shouldn't at all, like at all. Like if
I know what
there
you
are
mean.
things you should stand for, but do not let your own mental health go to shit because you are constantly putting yourself in the firing line of fighting someone else's cause. You matter. You're important. You need to look after yourself, or you're no use help fighting any cause whatsoever.
I'm
You
the
need to
same.
take that time.
I kind of quietly support things.
Yeah,
You
I'm the
know,
same.
like I that'll either mean donations or sharing things or you know, like you won't really hear me come out and make like big impassioned speeches and unless I really like the last time I did, um, I think might have been a stream where I was talking about trans rights. Because someone in the comments was just pissing me off and I was like, look, listen, I support this. Get over it. Like
Yeah.
this is how it is. Um, but there was another time during you know everything that went down in 2020. Um, I was doing a different show back then,
Okay.
and yeah, a very short-lived show. And there was an episode where we spoke about this, and we all kind of impassioned, like spoke about it from the heart, and it was a difficult conversation.
Mm.
Um, but I was like, this is the right thing to do. You
Yeah.
know, I feel like not talking about it would almost be like bizarre and like I don't know. It's I always just kind of like do what I can and just let the universe decide what's right. You know, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
still
I
figuring it
know.
out.
I completely get what you mean, and I implore the people that can really go out there and passionately fight for this stuff. But like I said, man, like you can't fight for anything if you're not right yourself. You can't give 100 if you're only giving 95.
Yeah, I
Do you know
gotta
what I
look
mean?
after
So
oneself.
you've got to look out for yourself. So if I understand that there's a lot of pressure on from both sides on everything thing in life at the moment to state your case, or if you're not with me, you're against me, all that kind of thing. Don't worry too much about what strangers on the internet have to say when they're arguing with each other. Make sure you put yourself first. Make sure you are your number one priority. And if you've got the strength to fight, then go out and fight. But not physically, guys. Don't get into any violent spats. We don't want that. But go fight for what you believe in. But if you don't have the mental capacity to do that, if it's going to cause you harm, take a step back. Take a more reserved approach. You see it happen to a lot of people now. A lot of people impassionately fight for this stuff online, and eventually they just get to a state where they're just angry all the time because all they're doing every day is fighting and arguing, and it's no good for the soul, man. You need to, again, what I said at the beginning, it's about what brings us together, and it's not about what separates us at the end of the
day. Beautiful sentiment to end it on, I think. Final question, as always, any upcoming projects or final thoughts you want to share with us?
Well, I will always say I have content in the works. Will it ever come out? Who knows? I am planning on trying to get some bits sorted. There is, of course, Sonic Superstars coming this year. I'm going to be reviewing that on the channel. I really need to get around to reviewing Sonic Prime Seasons 1 and 2, so I am going to try and cook that up soon. If you're going to game shows towards the end of this year, if you're going to EGX, MCM Comic Con, or Paris Games Week, I will definitely be at EGX and Paris Games Week. I might be at Comic Con. I'm going to try and get in through SEGA. So please come and say hello at the SEGA booths if you're around. I genuinely love meeting people from the internet and just, oh god, that sounds dodgy. I just genuinely love meeting you, got like people that interact with the content and stuff like that, and chatting to them about stuff. So come say hey. And yeah, nothing else to really talk about yet.
But there you go.
Stuff, but hey ho.
How do you feel?
Good, man. Good.
I'm glad, man. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, man. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Me. Honestly, I love coming on the show. It's brilliant. It doesn't really feel like a show at one point. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like we're having a conversation and just like having a good old catch up. So I love it.
That's kind of like, I've said this before, but that's the aim. That's the goal mostly. Yeah. And obviously every time it's going to be different. Obviously we know each other in real life, and so there's that element. But it's like, I don't know. I think the interesting thing with this show is it's got a lot of faces, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So it's about human interest stories. It's about interviews, discussions. It's about pretty heavy topics, fun topics. But then it's also like catching up with people, like checking in with people. There's a lot of elements to it, and sometimes I go on the deep dives on certain topics with people and stuff. And I don't know. I kind of just take every day as it comes with this show, and I let it kind of breathe its own air. But I think at first and foremost, it'll always be discussions, conversations.
Like you said, it's a time capsule.
Yeah,
really is. One of the things I love most about it. Like, a year from now, I'll probably see the old clips come up from this on the feeds, and I'll be like, yo, should we get together? Should we do another one? And it's
what's mad? What's mad? I always share old episodes, like on like Instagram, like on this day, like it's to promote, obviously, but also it's nice because I'm sitting there and I'm like, I forgot this conversation even happened.
Yeah.
Because one thing, just full disclosure, I never go back and listen. I just don't. So there's conversations I've completely forgotten about. People I've forgotten about. I know how that sounds. Not like I've forgotten them. Like
you're on 200 episodes, mate. You are allowed to not remember every conversation.
It's like I'll look back and I'll remind myself. I'm like, oh yeah, this person, and we had this conversation, and they did this. And it's just. It's pretty special. I feel very grateful to get to do this.
No, mate. Honestly, the work you've been doing with it is amazing.
Thank you.
I genuinely love seeing the clips pop up. And it's just I'm very proud of you, man. It's great to see you, doing this and pursuing your dreams. And honestly, it's so lovely to see. And even looking at where your content was to where it is now as well, and watching just how it's upscaled each year. It just goes up in quality and production quality and everything. It's honestly, it's fantastic to watch, and I really do love following your journey, and it's why, as long as you'll have me, I'll always come back on, always come on to
You're
have a
always
chat with you.
welcome. You always. I think we should make it a thing as well that you always at least return once a year. Like
Yeah, I agree.
have to every
Yeah,
time. Yeah, awesome. Well,
nice
thank
one.
you so much for your time as always, man. And until the
Thank
next
you.
time.
Take care, my friend, and take care, Christian Reeve podcast viewers. Subscribe to the
Yes.
channel, follow on all the socials, and if you want to follow me over on Climbing Hatcher on YouTube, go for it.
Yes,
It made my day.
everybody.
I'm literally like 57 subs away from the big 2K. So
Damn.
if anyone wants to go help me out and give me a
Okay,
subscribe, I'd really
guys.
appreciate that.
Mission: go subscribe to him on YouTube. And yeah, I better do a plug as well. So come join my Discord, come join the Patreon, patreon.com/Christian Reeve. Check out all the links in the link tree. They'll be in the description. Right there, right there. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, for watching. And until next time, be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.